Hello you guys, and welcome to the channel. If you're new, don't be.
I'm Whitney. Keep it cute, get the boot.
Your girl, as whack as she is in all her glory, was in the New York Times. What up, you guys? Welcome to the channel. If you're new, don't be. Go ahead and click the subscribe button to be a part of the Witness gang, to join the Witness Nation. Now let's get into this, shall we? All right, you guys, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you are listening in on this video. Not for nothing, you guys know that today is the day that the Lord has made. Hallelujah. But today is also the day of the appeal submission. Finally, okay? Finally, we have gotten here, okay? But it is actually 9:17 a.m. Central Standard Time here in the lovely, lovely state of Texas. And nothing has been submitted, okay? So I said, without further ado, let me go ahead and continue the roll of the roll on with this journey to sentencing, because baby, we're still going to continue with this journey, okay? Regardless of this appeal process or what have you, he still is going to get sentenced. We're still going to hear the ramification of what he's been convicted for, okay? A true appeal can take up to 2 years, you know, so not for nothing, you know, we wait vigorously to see what the submission is going to be, and you guys know that you will hear it here as soon as it comes in. But in the meantime, in between time, I wanted to go ahead and finish the opening statements. The defense is long-winded, okay? She is so long-winded, like seriously, and I'm not just saying this because I'm on the opposing side, but Nicole Becker is just slow. She states that she's slow. The judge was like, how much longer of this? They took a whole lunch break and we're back, and she is still talking about she needs 25 more minutes, Jesus. So you know what, we were listening in on this on the other day, and I just was like, if I would have continued to read, the video would have been well over 2.5, almost 3 hours waiting on this lady to get finished with just her opening statements, Lord. So not for nothing, I broke it up. I know that can sometimes be just kind of frustrating of a woman to be bouncing around like that, and I'd be trying to make, you know, the transcripts be coherent and cohesive and be on one video, but I do sincerely apologize. It was just too much, okay? And I read the sidebar so you guys can hear the transgressions and the issues that was going on when dealing with the judge and Miss Becker. You guys were also able to hear that she was taken up for killing in a lot of cases, and Judge Donnelly has been stated to be unfair and all this, that, and the third, but she was holding her foot to the prosecution like, no, I already told you we're not going to be talking about this now, you know. And so it was very interesting to see the sidebars, and that's why it's so beneficial when they're not redacted, to be able to read them. And again, an update in regards to the redacted transcripts, I did a follow-up email, okay? Miss Sophia, yeah, ma'am, I'm gonna need you to come through, ma'am. Get at us. What is going on? What's up? You know, y'all, I'm still working on that, okay? Y'all know I have nothing to hide with you guys or lie to you guys about anything. Those that submitted your ducats for these transcripts, I am working on them, okay? But not for nothing, we are full steam ahead on our way to the road to sentencing. Today marks officially 75 days, okay, until he is scheduled to appear before the judge on May 4th, okay? So without further ado, let me go ahead and get into the read and the continuation of the opening statements with defense. Okay, so that is what we're going to be reading. If you guys aren't aware, the opening defenses, we're going to continue that. Okay, we're together. Okay, because we're about evidence over emotions here at Whitney D TV. What up, Witness Nation? Now, you know we're super sleuths over here. We all about the facts, evidence over emotions. Let's see what we've discovered. All right, you guys, let's go ahead and get underway. We left off on page 88, okay? And I think it's a total of like 8 more pages or 10 more pages. We gonna see. I'm gonna read until it's nothing else to read, okay? So it goes on to say, the judge saying, go ahead. Ms. Blank Becker says, thank you. Let's continue. Ladies and gentlemen, just before lunch, we were talking about Jane Doe number 4. Ladies and gentlemen, the evidence is going to show that yes, Jane Doe number 4 on one occasion did go over to Mr. Kelly's house. It was a party, and she was there with a friend of hers. She was invited there not by Mr. Kelly, but by somebody else. Yeah, that is the only time you will hear, ladies and gentlemen, that she was actually invited there. Why do I say that? You're not going to see any text messages between Mr. Kelly and Geronda Pace. Excuse me. Jane Doe number 4. Ladies and gentlemen, you are actually going to hear that she was at Mr. Kelly's house uninvited with a friend of hers. Her friend is going to testify as well, and you are going to hear what happened when they went into Mr. Kelly's home and took pictures of themselves in the house. And I suggest to you, you won't get to see any pictures of Mr. Kelly with Jane Doe number 4. Other than the media might have taken some pictures, you'll see. You might see a picture, or he posed for a picture and gave her a signature, something to that effect, but never. You will not see and you will not hear about any text messages. Why? Because, ladies and gentlemen, remember, she is a self-proclaimed liar. Yeah. And I suggest to you, ladies and gentlemen, that when you have someone on the stand who is a self-proclaimed liar, and what I mean by that, she is going to admit she lied about her age. And that's an important factor here, ladies and gentlemen, because she's going to be asked about that. Listen to what she says. Now, I also got to tell you, I'm here telling you what you are going to hear from the stand, but sometimes with Jane Doe number 4, you never know. No, I anticipate that she is going to get on the stand. She's going to claim she had this magnificent relationship with Mr. Kelly until it was time to write a book. She'll tell you about her book until she found out that there was a lawyer, okay, who is advertising for individuals who, if they felt they were victimized by Mr. Kelly, call this number. And she did. That's what I talk about. That is what I mean when they say the Jane Does, they have a motive. And Jane Doe number 4's motive is no different. Only we believe that it will be obvious when she testifies and we try to get her to stick to a story. She can't do that. Why? Why? Because when you tell the truth over and over again, it's easy. You come in here and tell you guys the truth. But when you hear the number of times she changed even the minute, even some of these small details snowballed. Ladies and gentlemen, you get to be the judges of credibility. And I believe that when Jane Doe number 4 takes the stand, her credibility will be at issue. Now, I'm next going to talk about Jane Doe. I'm going to skip 5 for a moment, and I'm going to talk about Jane Doe number 6. Jane Doe number 6, you will hear that she met Mr. Kelly at one of his concerts. Her sister had backstage passes. She went with her sister. They got to go in what's called typically the green room, which is where you'll hear that's where a number of people go after a concert, whether it's to do an interview, soundbite for radio, or fans. She was there, and she ultimately exchanged numbers, with Mr. Kelly. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, one of the elements in this whole thing, the whole enterprise, is that Mr. Kelly's people, and in fact, the indictment says his entourage, recruited people, right? Well, you're going to hear, actually, that isn't always true. It's a nice umbrella, to put all the Jane Does, but ladies and gentlemen, she exchanged phone numbers with Mr. Kelly himself, and she called him. You'll hear, ladies and gentlemen, that ultimately they had a dating relationship. In fact, you'll hear they had a dating relationship for quite some time, and ultimately it ended. Now, she'll give you her reason for why she believed it ended, like any other couple. Oftentimes, there's two sides to a story, but ladies and gentlemen, when she takes the stand and she tells you about her reasons for why she believed it was over, I believe that you're going to add her to the saying, hell has no fury like a woman scorned. Meaning, ladies and gentlemen, when Jane Doe number 4 testifies, she will tell you that she learned about the other women that Mr. Kelly was dating, and when she learned about that, she was none too happy. Now, she's going to claim that she didn't know about them, ladies and gentlemen, but we anticipate that you are going to get a chance to see text messages and messages where she is on them with other girlfriends of Mr. Kelly. But ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, one of the things that she's going to testify about is she's going to tell you that she believes that she is confident that she contracted herpes from Mr. Kelly. Confident. And what's even more interesting, and I hope you listen to this testimony at this point, she's going to tell you that she knows exactly when she got herpes from Mr. Kelly, the last time she was in New York. She's going to tell you guys that that's when she believes she contracted the disease, because, ladies and gentlemen, one of the ways you'll see that one of the ways that Mr. Kelly is here before you in New York is because of Jane Doe number 6's claims. Now, Jane Doe number 6 is going to tell you about her relationships, and Jane Doe number 6 is going to look you in the eye and tell you that this is the man that gave her herpes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to hear from doctors, probably doctors, both sides. And when you hear what they explain to you about herpes in your mind, I hope you reflect back on what Miss Jane Doe number 6 said and ask yourselves, does that make any sense? Use your common sense. We believe that your common sense is going to be a very important tool when it comes to Jane Doe number 6. Now, ladies and gentlemen, another interesting thing just to note, because it's a huge topic and something that's going to be asked about a lot regarding herpes. The individuals, the witnesses who take the stand and point to Mr. Kelly and say that that's the person that gave it, that particular herpes to them, wait till you see how confident they are. And again, ringing that bell and listening to the doctors, what they tell you about herpes. And then the number of witnesses that are on the stand, you'll be able to just cross them off, I suggest. Now, let's move on to Jane Doe number 5. Jane Doe number 5, you will hear, was a long-term girlfriend of Mr. Kelly's. You're going to hear that the way she met Mr. Kelly was her parents decided to take her to one of his shows. They went to the show They went to the show. Her parents went as well. And during the show, you'll hear that Mr. Kelly has a part in his show where people from the audience are allowed to come up on stage and dance or do, what people do on a stage at a rock concert. And you're going to hear, ladies and gentlemen, that Jane Doe number 5, she was up on that stage. You'll hear that. And not only was she up on the stage, you'll hear about her dance moves. And ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to hear as a result of that, phone numbers were exchanged and her parents were aware of it. You're going to hear that objection, Miss Gideus. The objection is overruled. But please bear in mind the rulings that I made prior to trial. Let's move on to something else. Thank you, Judge. You're going to hear that the way there, Mr. Kelly and Jane Doe number 5's relationship began, it began on a lie. Now, keep you all in suspense. You're going to hear about that when she takes the stand. You are going to hear and actually see what kind of relationship she had with Mr. Kelly. She was in an envious position, for lack of better words. She was super close with Mr. Kelly. You'll hear that they did everything together a lot. Driving the car, going places. She was there. And then it wasn't until she talked to Mr. Kelly and they, at that point, which was recently, Mr. Kelly had a relationship with Jane Doe number 5, but also another young woman, and they were friends. You'll hear Jane Doe number 5 and the other woman, they were all friends. But there came a point where Jane Doe number 5 drew a line in the sand. And Jane Doe number 5 told Mr. Kelly it was time to get rid of her. Not only that, you'll hear that she told Mr. Kelly she wanted her own place. And when Mr. Kelly told her he's not going to do that, the other woman is just as willing and supportive as you are. He's not going to break up with the other girl. Not going to get this new apartment for Jane Doe number 5 to have by herself. Guess what happened? You're going to hear, and you are going to see, and you are going to hear she unraveled. No longer was she supportive. Was she close to Mr. Kelly? Instead, it was like the total opposite. And you're going to hear her talk about how I anticipate how horrible Mr. Kelly is. You're going to get to see the pictures as well, the happy times, the good times, and somehow you will see that Jane Doe number 5 won't have it. That is not the reality. She'll tell you the relationship, even though you see the pictures, you hear that we're out together, all the other girls are, all the other women are, they're going to say yes. They seem like they were the closest. But wait till she testifies, and wait till you see and hear the web of truth, confusion, and unbelievability of that witness. Jane Doe number 5 is just another example, ladies and gentlemen, of someone who ended up having motive. You're going to hear what her motive ends up being. And ladies and gentlemen, I suggest to you that when you hear her testimony and you put it in context and you hear the totality of the circumstances, you are not going to be able to believe her either. And if you don't believe the witness and there's a charge connected to that witness, you as jurors can say no. And I anticipate that will happen if you listen to all of the testimony. Now, I apologize. I'm slow. but I just want to make sure you hear every word and it sinks in. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what we have described thus far is a number of women that are after revenge. Revenge. That word is going to make sense when you hear their testimony. Now, that's a big word, big shoes to fill. But I think after you hear everyone's testimony, that word will ring true. Now, you're going to hear all sorts of things throughout this trial from that stand, and I suggest that some of the things you're going to hear have to do with Mr. Kelly's choice and partner. In fact, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to hear anyone take the stand who is a male, who is listed as a Jane Doe or John Doe in the indictment. No, you're going to hear from a number of other people, including the John Does, about Mr. Kelly's personal sexual desires. Why, ladies and gentlemen? Well, ladies and gentlemen, you will hear that there have been rumors. There have been several things like Mr. Kelly is gay. Ladies and gentlemen, we're in a court of law. You'll hear yourself whether he is gay, bisexual, heterosexual, who cares? Ladies and gentlemen, you're going to hear that some of the sexual activities that Mr. Kelly and his girlfriends engaged in, there were others that were involved. Strike that. You're going to hear that any of the witnesses, any of the Jane Does objected to, yes. Now, you may hear about issues that they have with it, but doesn't it make sense? Strike that too. Hell. Doesn't it make sense? And you're going to hear and make sense of the fact that a red flag doesn't get waved until when? The breakup. And then you'll hear how Mr. Kelly enjoyed, wanted, was involved with men. Ladies and gentlemen, I suggest to you, we hope that as you listen to the testimony, you will see that topic we call that fluff. Yeah. The topic of his sexual preference, is his window dressing. And we hope that you see through that. Ladies and gentlemen, you're also going to hear about a number, and I'm sorry, I've moved past Jane Doe number 5. Now you're going to hear about a number of civil lawsuits. Those, including Jane Doe's, will take the stand and tell you about it. And in fact, Jane Doe number 4 is going to tell you that she gave the money back. Ladies and gentlemen, like I said, I suggest you are going to hear some details that you're literally going to say, that doesn't make sense. Listen to yourselves. Let the alarms go off. You're going to hear that certain words, certain verbiage was used between Mr. Kelly and his girlfriend's daddy. And somehow, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to hear from that stand that the word daddy has now become equivalent to the worst word you could ever think of. Daddy. I suggest to you, you'll hear nobody was complaining about having sexual relationships with him, with Mr. Kelly. But now, ladies and gentlemen, we've got a word that I believe you will hear from that stand is a common word, a word you used oftentimes in sexual relationships, even not sexual relationships. In fact, you will hear that it's a common, nice way of referring to someone. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I am confident that word is going to be slung in the mud. That word is going to be another rule. Ladies and gentlemen, usually when you get rules, how to play the game, for example, how to perform in your job. Usually you don't get rule 1 at the beginning, and 6 months into the job you get rule 7. That doesn't make sense. So ladies and gentlemen, when they start to talk to you about all of these horrible things that occurred, think about that and think about if that makes any sense. Now, you're going to hear, ladies and gentlemen, that Mr. Kelly cannot read or write. You're going to hear, ladies and gentlemen, you are from the stand that oftentimes, since he couldn't read or write, he literally came up with melodies and songs in his head. And ladies and gentlemen, you're going to hear that he worked crazy amounts of hours, because his process as an artist is very different than maybe someone else's. And it's a time-consuming process. In fact, he worked through the whole night of the not by himself with his engineers. You'll hear that when he would go on tour, and with a tour bus, he'd bring his band and his engineer and, yes, girlfriends, and yes, his friends oftentimes. But ladies and gentlemen, what you're going to hear is the different Jane Does are going to tell you about how much time they spent with Mr. Kelly. Ladies and gentlemen, you're going to see and you are going to hear the dates of different tours that he was on. Mr. Kelly was on the move a lot. The studio was where he created mentally. And because he was a mental cerebral thinker, that's how he does his music. In order to go from the bottom to the top, the judge, can I see the parties at the side, please? Excuse me, just a minute. First of all, you got to wrap this up. You've been going on for quite a long time. It's getting repetitive. Second, we're back into the world of talking about things that Mr. Kelly does, or things that if he is not going to testify, they are not admissible. His process as an artist is completely irrelevant. I really do want, to get going with some testimony. I'm asking you to wrap it up. Please don't do things that I keep telling you not to do. Is there anything else that you want to say? Miss Kittius. I'll save this for after the court day, but I do have a concern with some of her arguments with respect to charges involving the exposure of a sexually transmitted disease. I think that counsel completely misstated that the charge is, and making the jury believe that we have to prove that he actually is the reason for someone contracting an STD, and that's not the charge. Ooh, that's good. Because y'all remember when Stephen Bird was saying basically that was the charge. And no, that's not it. The judge goes on to say, I've instructed them what lawyers say is not evidence, but I do expect the lawyers to follow that rule. And you just have to talk about the evidence is going to show, and you really have to wrap it up. The judge, go ahead. Ms. Blank Becker. Thank you, Judge. Ladies and gentlemen, the evidence that you will hear from that stand, the government has to prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt each and every element of each charge. We anticipate that there will be a lot of testimony coming from that stand, and I wish I could go through every little part of it, but that's what closing arguments are for. Ladies and gentlemen, ultimately, the charges that you are here to determine that the government must prove with beyond a reasonable doubt, we suggest that it's going to be a very tough pill to swallow. Because, ladies and gentlemen, the United States of America against Mr. Sylvester Kelly, that is some big shoes to fill. And fortunately, ladies and gentlemen, we have you. You get to fill those shoes, meaning you get to listen and you get to interpret and listen to the facts. And we are confident that when you do that, you will see there is no enterprise. You will see and you will hear that the testimony does not line up with kidnapping, secret rooms. So we ask you, keep an open mind and listen to the testimony as it comes in. And that way we, as a defense, know Mr. Kelly will have a fair trial. And that is why we are all here today. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Judge. Thank you. All right. Are you ready to call your next witness? Yes, Your Honor. Your first witness? Yes, Your Honor. The government calls Geronda Pace. All right, as we concluded there with the opening statements from the defense, we are going to pick back up possibly either this weekend or next week with the continuation of these transcript readings. Again, I am reading only highlights from the transcripts. It is, we have, over a dozen. I want to say close to 20. I have literally all the documents or transcripts that came across the floor of the courtroom. I have them, right? And so I am going to be reading highlights from each person that transpired. Some transcripts are a little shorter, so we will just read the transcript in its entirety. What I'm trying to do is possibly get 2 witnesses a week, both with cross, redirect, and direct, and all that stuff like that. Just different parts. I'm going to label them accordingly. It will be in the playlist that I've created for this series. So just look there if you're trying to catch up. Again, I will be releasing all of the transcripts on my Patreon. And you guys can visit my description box for more information about my Patreon. It will be on the 3rd tier, the top tier, and it will have all of them. The other tiers will have like a few of them. However, to obtain all of them, it will be on the top tier. And the smaller tiers will have a selective of different transcripts and articles and documents and things to that nature. Okay. Now you're probably like, well, this is, you guys can look this up yourself. You absolutely can do all the work that I did to obtain these transcripts and search and get them. You're basically paying me for the work that you didn't have to do. Okay. But not for nothing. Tell me what you guys think about the continuation of the defense's opening remarks, all the stumbles and fumbles, and oh my gosh, it was just crazy. But we are full steam ahead on the on the road to sentencing for R.KELLY, okay? We are 75 days away from sentencing in New York for R.KELLY with nothing yet, okay? Nothing as of yet on the appeal process. As we speak right now, I am literally refreshing the docket, and nothing has came in as of yet, okay? But like I said, you guys stay tuned here on WhitneyD TV, and I will keep you guys abreast as to what is developing and updating when it comes to the appeal process with R.KELLY as we continue down this road to sentencing with R.KELLY. You guys have a blessed and wonderfully safe day. I'll see you later. Bye.
I'm Whitney. Keep it cute and get